The Dice Tower is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. And by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff, in stock at coolstuffinc.com. The Dice Tower, episode 544.
Food, glorious food.
Welcome to the Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On today's show, we answer both the email and the voicemail, covering topics like strange house rules and the etiquette of eating at the table. We have a prototypical tale of board gaming horror. Tom gets fed up with his visit to a train store, and we finish up with a menu of our top 10 games about food. I'm Eric Summerer, and here's your host, the Chef Morimoto to my Alton Brown, Tom Vassell.
I thought for sure you had used this one already.
I haven't?
But I searched and I can't find it.
Well, there we go.
But I only have so many episodes in my file.
Yeah.
See, one of the problems that we have is, folks who are listening to the show, and I'm Tom Vassell, by the way.
Hi, I'm Eric Summerer.
Is that when you do 544 episodes, it's hard to keep track of what you've done. Apparently, Eric, I read that set of questions about demoing games, that we had already done that whole set.
Yeah, it sounded somewhat familiar, but I actually thought that we had done a similar sounding set that wasn't about demoing games. It was about it was either about actually doing the demos or demoing them, like being the demoee versus the demoer. I thought there were two separate sets, but maybe...
Honestly, I have no idea. I don't remember it at all.
I hope, what would be interesting is, did we give the same answers both times?
There always is that worry, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. We try and keep notes, folks. We really do. I mean, I actually have a document with all of the puns that we throw into the end credits, and I'll get one sometimes either submitted from someone or something will come to me, and I'm like, that's a great one, and I go searching through the document and realize like 10 episodes back I did the exact same pun, and I just don't remember.
Well, happily, we've gotten a lot of great puns recently. If you've been following that thread where people post them. There
is a thread on Board Game Geek. I try and stay away from it until I'm ready to use them, just so I get them all at once and can evaluate them. So I stay away from the thread for about a week or two at a time, and then I jump in and get as many as I can. So I've missed the recent discussion. There
is definitely some good ones there now that revolve around your name.
Oh, excellent. Maybe I'll choose
Apparently,
one for this very episode.
Somebody got the idea that Eric is only a letter away from epic.
Ah. Okay.
And therefore, gold.
Yes. So there's a lot of tiny Eric games?
Oh, more than that, though. The word epic is in more things than you might think. So anyway, let's see here. For those of you who backed their Kickstarter, once again, we say thank you. We will be, hopefully by the time you hear this, you will have gotten a pledge manager. So we are setting that up, and that should be sent out. If for some reason you want to back the Kickstarter and you were not able to or missed it or what have you, email us at dicetower@gmail.com. Actually, yes. However, you can now email us at other accounts.
Oh, yes, yes.
Finally, it's only taken me a decade or so, but Kenny is much better than me at setting all this stuff up. We now have our own email addresses, so it's tom@dicetower.com if you ever need to get a hold of me.
And I'm at eric@dicetower.com.
That's Eric with a C.
Yes.
And no K.
Right.
Or an A. No A, C, or K.
Yes.
No, wait, there's a C.
Yes. But not both.
I'm trying to make this as helpful as possible to everybody.
Okay. I don't think anyone's ever had trouble with it before.
That's because you're very fortunate you have the most common Eric.
I do. It's true.
Let's see, what else is going on? Well, Dice Tower tonight, of course, we always want to recommend that you guys watch that if you get a chance. That's every other Wednesday, so if you're listening to this when the show comes out, it's next week. But we mentioned this is a Dice Tower video show. If you say, I don't have time to watch the YouTube channel, then you can go to dicetoweraudio.com and just download some of the shows that we post there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Did we mention last time that Eric was going to Grand Con?
We did not, which is why I wanted to make sure I threw it up there. I'm going back to Michigan. I'm really excited. I grew up in Kalamazoo, just an hour south of Grand Rapids, and I get to head over to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and experience this con that, Tom, you've been to, and Sam and Z have been to, but I've never been, so I'm really excited to visit in September.
Oh, you're going to have a good time. Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. Really, that's... You know, for some reason, I thought you were there. You're always in my heart. That's what it is.
Oh, yes. Well, like that. That's good. That's good.
All right. Well, I think... Now, I don't know about Eric, but I just want to kind of give this kind of warning. We have entered the dark ages of the year. At least
no.
I have.
Oh, no.
No. Don't be too worried. But what I mean is, I still have a queue of 300-400 games.
Yeah.
But this queue is spitting out bad games about as equally as it's spitting out good ones at this point.
Yes. The success percentage is going down.
Yeah, I just had a game day, and the only good game we played was one I already knew how to play. It was Century Spice Road. And like halfway through the day, I was like, you know what? We're playing a game I know how to play, and that's good. Just to make sure that good games still exist.
Yep.
And that's okay. Don't get me wrong. I like playing bad games. I know that's an odd thing. It's still a new game system to explore and look around and things like that. But and there's still a lot of gems in these piles, but not as many as there once was, for sure.
Right. Well, we found a few, thanks to our Dice Tower Tonight whittling down process. I think we found some good ones, right?
Yeah, we have. Also, so far the whittling has done well, with possibly the exception of the last one, maybe.
Oh, well, we haven't discussed that one yet, so...
Well, we have, because that was last Dice Tower Tonight that I went over it.
Right, yes.
So... Yeah, you can go watch my video review. It was okay. This wasn't fantastic. One of the games, though, that I had hoped would win in that competition was Get Off My Land.
Okay.
Even though the box cover looked like a redneck farmer type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Get off my land, guy coming out with a shotgun, And yeah, I was like, But then I opened the box, and the pieces looked great. The art looked good. There was a board you slid cards into for a market row. Those wooden pieces with meeples with embossed printing. So the whole thing looked a lot better. And basically this is a farming game, kind of area control. You start with your fences around a property, and you're slowly expanding to get crops. And when you get crops, sometimes you can, harvest the whole crop to get a lot of money, which is points in this game. Or you can just take a little bit of money each season instead. If you get animals, you have to harvest them sometimes. Or, again, you might take a little bit of money. Say you have some chickens, you might take some eggs. Or you might harvest all the chickens to get some, chicken. And get more money that way. So that part's kind of interesting. The problem is there's a deck of cards in this game that you are constantly playing on each other. And it's essentially just a big pile of take-that cards. So this whole game is kind of interesting as you're growing these fences. But it's so mean and nasty, which, again... The Get Off My Land title probably should have clued me into that. But I got kind of enamored with this. Ooh, look at this cool pieces. It looks beautiful. And the game also doesn't really ramp up at all. At the end of the game, you're still kind of doing the same things you were doing at the beginning. So it's an interesting idea, and it's beautiful production. But in the end, I'm going to have to pass on Get Off My Land.
Well, first up for me is a game that I was super excited to play from Essen. It's called Noria. It's from designer Sophia Wagner. It's published by Stronghold Games, originally from Spielweis. And the theme really caught me. It's like these floating islands, gorgeous art with these airships and stuff flying around. And also, mechanically, it has a cool action selection 3-tiered wheel that has like 2 spaces for action discs on the top level, and then 4 on the second level, and then 6 on the next level. And every turn, you're going to choose some of those discs to activate, sort of making a path in the lower half of that wheel and choosing up to 3 of them to activate. And then at the end of your turn, all of those discs rotate one notch, basically. So as far as the top wheel goes, you'll see the same disc every other turn because there's only 2 slots and it rotates 1 space. But then the 4-space wheel only moves 1 space each turn, so you'll see the same disc for 2 turns in a row. And then the lower one, you'll see the same disc for 3 turns in a row because it rotates. You can also spend resources to rotate it more. Ultimately, you are trying to move your representatives up this sort of track on the top of the board and invest in whatever that track may be with these little representative cubes. And ultimately, your score is how far you got up on that track times how much that thing got invested in. And that's all the points. Now, how you do that is the whole meat of the game. Upgrading your action discs and collecting resources and turning those resources into finished goods, both complex and simple, and then spending those things on those tracks, and you have to spend city actions to do that. There is a lot of moving parts, both literally and figuratively, in this game. But this is definitely my wheelhouse. This is the kind of stuff I love doing. It's definitely one of those games that you have more that you want to do than you possibly can do. And the game only lasts a certain number of turns based on the number of players, and you can see you're getting closer to the end, and you can tell that you're not going to be able to do everything you want to do. And you really have to be careful and efficient about what you try and do and what you try to accomplish before the end of the game. Actions start to get more expensive. Like early in the game, it may only cost a little bit to invest 1 or 2 of these technology tokens to invest in one of these guys to change the multiplier on one of these guys. But then later in the game, it could be 5 that you have to spend, and you have to have your economy moving in order to still have the ability to invest in these point-scoring characters. I liked it. Others that I played with didn't seem quite as enamored. They felt it might actually be a little too simple, which I certainly didn't agree with. There's a lot of stuff going on here. And I do want to play this some more because you can invest in one of the tracks really hard and then invest in bonuses for your best representative and get extra points that way, or you can try and diversify and get extra points for diversification. There's a lot to do, and I want to try new strategies. I really enjoyed Noria. The connection to the theme might be a little weak. It's basically a resource collection, action management, action selection sort of thing. The floating islands,
amazing. They look cool.
Artistically they come in, but there's not a whole lot of connection there to what you're doing. Still, I really enjoyed Noria. Thumbs up.
Yeah, I like it too. But I do wonder if it has staying power, as in, I know you said you're willing to explore it and all, but I wonder when we come back in a year if you will have.
Interesting. Okay.
And I don't mean that as a negative thing. I actually like the game too. I like the puzzly aspect of it, trying to get those discs in the right spot. I sit there and think about them for a while. I thought it was pretty cool. But I wonder, and I wondered about this about a lot of games, so this is not some, it's hard for a game to really make it a name for itself these days.
It's true.
But Castle Dukes tries. So the way Castle Dukes works is it's a game in which you are building several castles. And you're actually physically building them. The game it is the size of a Ticket to Ride box, and it is chock full of components. I mean, you can barely get the lid on. You have these big bases that you're going to be putting on and pillars and building this tower. But the game it's kind of dexterity. Well, I shouldn't say kind of. It's actually quite dexterous.
Dexterous?
Dexterous. Yes. Thank you, Eric. So in this game, you are spending you have like 5 coins to spend every turn. And with these coins, you buy rooms to put into this castle, and these rooms will give you benefits. Your castle has 3 statistics: comfort, defense, and offensive. And you keep these three stats updated, and you're going to compare them to other people at different points. And each room also might come with room to put furniture or have different people show up, and those rooms and furnitures might also add stats to your castle and or give you points at the end of the game. So each turn you'll take turns buying these rooms and buying parts to your 3 different castles that you're building. Well, at certain turns, and you're not quite sure when, but they happen around turns 4 and 5, 6 and 7, and 9, a dragon will attack. And so you then will check your offensive or defensive power, whichever one you feel like using, and the dragon will do damage to your castle depending on how much your offense and defense is, which in turn 4 or 5 is probably not high enough to block him at all. You're going to take damage no matter what. So you draw a bunch of damage chits, and you draw 5, and then you select a certain number based on how much damage you've taken, and that's what you have to pull off of your castle. Realize if you built your castle with just a few pillars to save money, pulling one of those pillars, you might make the whole castle fall over. Or just pulling things off will also make, negative things happen to you. Also, starting on turn 4, every turn you turn over a card, and knights and princesses and kings will show up, and they will go to the castle that has the most in a certain statistic. Kings are great because they're extra points at the end of the game. Knights add to your offense. And princesses, well, you can sacrifice them when a dragon attacks to take less damage. Not sure about the morality of that, but that's what's in the game. So, the game is intriguing in theory more than it is in practice. First of all, the game is really hard. You're building these towers, and yet there's piles of stuff all over the table. And I would say 5 times I saw towers knocked over because people were trying to reach around them to get some more stuff. And at least 4 of those 5 times, it was someone knocking over someone else's tower, which, can lead to some small hurt feelings of threatening to kill the other person. So there's that. Secondly, the dragon's just going to rip up your tower no matter what. I guess that's the point of the game, but it's kind of Eric, your defense is not as good as Tom's. Okay, great. Dragon's going to whoop you up. Guess what? Now your defense is even lower. How's that feel? Tom says, I feel great. So it's kind of the poor get poorer type game. And I'm not so keen on that. And finally, we all figured out, hey, you can build 3 castles. So we all built a 3rd castle that was just garbage. It had pillars and floors and just trash in it. No one cared about it. That way when the dragon attacked, we'd be like, oh, wait, we need to pull some pillars? We'll pull them off this castle. Oh, we need to lose some floors? They'll come off this castle. It was a decoy castle, which is a really cool idea maybe for a movie, but in the game it got kind of boring. So this game feels like this really cool idea that if they brought it to me, I'd be like, okay, I think you have something here. Let's start developing it. So it sounds and looks cool, but it doesn't play as good as I like it to. That's Castle Dukes.
Okay. Next up for me is Tiki Island. This is a game from Great White Games, W-I-G-H-T. It's designed by Matt Heiser and Christian Medill. You've got all these meeple-shaped islanders, and they're up to 6 players start on these starting islands, and the goal is to get your 3 meeples across the ocean to the opposite island. It's the same general goal as, River Dragons, where you had to get your guy across the lake, basically. The theme is that there's a terrible tragedy, like a meteor or a volcano or a tsunami or something that's destroying the island that you're on. You're trying to get to safety across the board. Of course, you don't know that there's another natural disaster happening across the board. So you're all doomed. It doesn't matter. You do this by placing stones, island tiles of your color, in a path across the board. You're trying to get a nice unbroken path. There's sometimes usually a neutral one in the center, but then you're trying to get your own color tiles across the board, and then you can move your guys and a tiki across the board. Most of your placement of tiles is dependent on where your tiki is, so you have to move that as well as your meeples across the board. You do this by rolling a die at the beginning of your turn, and then you can either do what the die says, which is some sort of specialized action, or do a basic action that are always available to you. Stuff like, place 3, one build. You can either put 1 tile down on the board, you can move 3 spaces, or you can draw a card, because there's these crazy cards that break all the rules. Or, if you roll the proper number, you get sort of upgraded versions of these actions. So you can move more, or build more, or move and build. There's even one that lets you soar, which allows you to skip over unfriendly tiles as long as you land on something that you're allowed to land on. And if you roll a 6, you can choose any of those things, which is great. And you can also discard cards to sort of add to your movement, give you the ability to soar, stuff like that. If this sounds like everybody's going to head toward the center of the board and get all clogged up, that's exactly what happens.
That is what it sounded like.
It's everybody just sort of surges toward the middle, and while you may be building in a nice pattern near your island when you first start, once you collide with everyone else, you will no longer have clear paths to do what you want to do. And then people start spending these cards, which change the ownership of certain tiles, or knock off meeples, or in my case, basically destroy, create these tiles that are uninhabitable and unpassable, and block me off completely. It's a very light game. And I think almost too light for my taste. It's almost too crazy to take that. It's definitely a take that game because you're constantly knocking each other's meeples out, making them go back to start and do it again. Once you do get somebody across, you don't have to get all 3 of the meeples across at the same time. Once they tag the goal, they're out, and you can just focus on your remaining 2 or 1. I was told by the designers that if I wanted to play with young kids, I could just remove the cards, but the cards offer sometimes the only way to make progress if you get stuck, or hoping to roll that 4 or roll a 6 to name the 4 to be able to soar, to be able to jump over obstacles, because there's no way you're going to build an unbroken path from one end of the board to the other. You have to be able to jump over stuff. And so at some point, I'm just hoping to roll that 4 or a 6 to be able to get mobility, to be able to make progress. And that sort of boiled down to, I'm just hoping somebody does that so the game's over. And that's where I felt at the end. I wasn't excited about what crazy thing's going to happen next. I was just hoping somebody was going to end it. And ultimately, that's not the feeling you want to get from the game. So unless you love that, take that utter chaos, let's all rush toward the center of the board and just see what happens, I would not recommend Tiki Island.
Does Tiki Island give you like vibes of Chinese checkers?
Well, it's certainly the similar layout. There's a lot more powers than in Chinese checkers, but it's that general idea, with some twists.
I'm out.
Yeah. I mean, I got to give them credit. The rule book was well written and entertaining, and it's got a nice style to it. But yeah, it was just too collidey for me. Let's just surge to the center and see what happens. And I don't know, not for me.
Well, okay. So, Star Wars. Clue.
Oh.
So we played this live. 2 weeks ago, I think, from when this podcast is being done. Did you watch us play it?
I missed that, no.
Because it was amazing. So, it's Star Wars Clue. Well, no, here's the deal. I'm going to find out who this was. Someone sent me an email and said, Star Wars Clue is actually quite good. And I was like, I went and looked at it on online, and I saw that it had like a 3D board, and I was like, all right, you've sold me. First of all, dear email liar. Well, that's pretty much all I had to say. Lies. All right, it's Clue, but with some added things. So you're on this Death Star, moving your guys around, and you're not working together because why would you? You're trying to go to a specific room. You're trying to find the Death Star plans are hidden in a room. I think there's 9 rooms. You are trying to find out what planet Darth Vader is trying to destroy next. All right, fine. And then you're trying to figure out what vehicle is available on this Death Star for you to escape in. Great. So it's Clue.
Mm-hmm.
So you're trying to find these 3 things. All the cards are split between the players. You go around and ask questions. But it has the same problem regular Clue does. A problem that Rob Daviau solved when he did Clue the DVD, but yet the... I'm trying to think of a kind word to talk about the people who develop games at Hasbro. All right, idiots. So the idiots at Hasbro decided that they're going to keep that roll dice to move around. That is an awful idea. Knock it. Oh, my goodness. Come on. It just makes me mad. I just want to smack something. Eric, it's not close enough.
But it's, well, good. But it's a classic. Like, I think I think for some
That's
people,
classically stupid.
If they open Clue and there isn't a roll and move mechanic, they freak out. Like, what is wrong with this? This is not how Clue is played.
I don't care. We stopped riding on horses too. Anyway, so they decided to kind of spice this rolling up thing. So when you roll a die and you end up in a hallway rather than in one of the rooms, you draw a card. Some of these cards are like, you see a stormtrooper, roll again. Or sometimes they let you move to any room of your choice on that same floor, because did I mention there are 2 floors of this thing? And sometimes they throw you in a detention cell. So you get caught and you go to the detention cell. You have to stay in a detention cell until another player frees you. Now, why might they free you? Well, for 2 reasons. One, if they free you, you have to show them a card. Which isn't that big of a deal, because you've probably shown them a card at some point in this game anyway. 2, if everyone gets stuck in a detention cell, then the game's over and everyone loses. Which, if I haven't mentioned, is an amazingly fun thing to happen. So, in our game, Sam guessed at the combination and failed, so he was out. So then me and Z, knowing what Sam had guessed, and we pretty much knew it, so we're both running down the hallway, running to the room so that we can say this is the combination and win the game. And we both got sent to detention block, and that was the end of the game. So fun. Star Wars Clue. I'm actually looking through my email now. I can't find it. Somebody lied to me about this. You know who you are, and I'm saddened by this.
Okay.
I'm gonna find the email. I'm gonna find you because I believe lies were told. This is not a good game. It takes Clue, which I've never been a big fan of anyway, because there's so many other amazing games out there. And you know what? I'm done with this. Instead, I'm going to briefly talk about a game called Awkward Guests.
What?
I know this isn't in the script.
Sure.
But I'm throwing it in now.
Okay.
And I've been playing Awkward Guests all week, and because I played it right before Clue, I was like, yeah, this is not a very good deduction game. Awkward Guests is the best deduction game I've ever played. Hands down.
Whoa.
I know. I'm pretty stringent on my deduction games. I think up to this point, my number 1 has been Sleuth, which is a pretty good game. It's very thinky. Well, Awkward Guests, you have it's the same theme as Clue. Some dude has been killed. And there are 6 suspects. Each suspect has 3 motivations. And then there are 20 different possible weapons they could have used. You find the suspect, their motive, and the weapon, and you win the game. And you do this through a pile of cards. The game comes with 234 cards. And you pick a case. There's a case for, there's like, I think, 30 cases in the book, but there's unlimited online, basically, because they have 1 case for every possible combination. So you take this case, and they'll tell you what 70 cards to pull out of that deck. All the cards are numbered. So it might say, pick 1, 6, 8, 9, 11, 13, so on. So that's a little bit of, work putting that together at the beginning of the game. But I just have someone read me the numbers. I put all these cards together, shuffle it. That's our deck. That deck conclusively proves, if you could look at all the cards, you would know who did it. But you can't look at all the cards. You're only going to get some of the cards. And so this game revolves players. They'll have some cards each turn, and then they spend some time asking each other questions to trade cards with each other. This is a good deduction game because if you mess up in the deduction, it's not another player's fault. It's your fault because all the stuff comes from these cards. So these cards will have information that the police and that the staff of the house are telling you, and they also have information that the suspects are telling you, but you have to realize that the murderer is lying. So one person's lying to you. But you have a map of this place. And so a suspect will say, I was in the living room. And then the staff will say, nobody went from the living room to the bathroom. So on my map, I'll cross that doorway off. And slowly but surely, I can figure out the path that the murderer took. And there's different weapons scattered throughout the house. So if they went on this path, they could only have access to these weapons. Meanwhile, I'm crossing weapons off and figuring out. And it uses like a little bit of a spatial element to figure it out, too. It is so satisfying. When you figure out who did it. Because it's not just, crossing some things out. You're taking clues. You're saying, okay, Sheila said she was with Brendette. I'm just making these names up. I forget their names. Mortimer. I'm sorry. Mortimer's one. And Stanley. So Mortimer says he was with Stanley. Stanley says he was with Mortimer. Therefore, I know they're both innocent because only one person's lying. And so you use these different clues like this. However, once you start playing on the medium or harder level, there's also an accomplice. So there's two people lying.
Huh.
It is so good. I have played this time and time again. Now, here's the problem. The game is in Spanish.
Oh.
So there was an English translation that they sent me, and I was like, and I looked at it, and I was like, okay, that looks interesting. I'll get around to it. It was kickstarted, an English version of the game, in November, but that Kickstarter did not succeed. So I still have an English copy. I guess you could probably buy English sheets for the game because that's, and I guess you need the cards too. They're all in English. I don't really know how to get it, but I have sworn a great oath to get this in print somehow, some way.
Wow.
Because it is amazing. It is so good. I love it. Awkward Guests.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was about to place an order for it, but I guess I can't do that now. That's fine. It's fine.
Well, you like deduction games anyway, right?
I do. I do really enjoy deduction games. This is now on my wish list.
All right. Well, I'll get you a copy somehow, someday.
Oh, someday. Got it. I'll hold you to that.
I don't want to say when. I don't know when.
I do. It's someday.
Actually,
I got it.
Awkward Guess is probably a bad translation. That's their translation.
Yeah.
But someone who spoke Spanish to me said obnoxious would probably be a better word.
Ooh, I like that better.
That's what I said too. Obnoxious Guess sounds better.
Yeah.
You know, although it really, I whooped Jason in a game, right? And he was really annoyed because he said the hotel staff said there was 3 guests in this room, 2 guests in this room, and 1 guest in this room, and there was only 6 suspects, and that's not possible. The game's broken. Blah blah blah. But one of the suspects is a pair of twins.
Ah.
So the hotel staff said there was a certain amount of people in the room. So while there's 6 suspects, there are 7 people.
Nice.
I didn't realize that either, but Jason messed up, and we were all very, very pleased about that, especially since we won. But I'm telling you, this game is so good. I sit there, and I'm sitting there figuring out the things. You're trading cards with other players, trying to give them clues that won't help them much, but, hoping they give you clues that help you out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And discarding clues that might give... I don't know how many cards in a deck... Like, I haven't played on the hardest level yet, but I know that the easier cases I can solve with probably half the cards in the deck. Or maybe even less. I don't know. It depends, the right combination of cards. Maybe in the harder one you need to see a lot more cards, but I'm guessing so. Such a good game. Such a good game.
Okay.
Now, tell me about another great game.
Well, my last one for today, it doesn't have a lot of deduction to it. It's I always pay attention to whatever Drei Magier Spiele puts out. They have some great kids games and some neat, innovative mechanics, and I'm always interested when they have a new game out. So I pounced on Vampires of the Night, which is actually, it looks like an older game, but has recently been brought over by Lion Rampant Imports.
Sounds like a B movie.
Vampires of the Night. It was designed by Kirsten Becker and Jens Peter Schliemann, and originally published by Drei Magier Spiele. The theme is that you've got these vampires who are sleeping in the lower level of the board. This is one of those games where the box, sort of becomes the play surface. So you've got the lower section of the board with the sleeping vampires, and then above that is a platform with holes in it. And on that platform get placed these garlic tokens of varying sizes. So some of the large ones won't fit in the smaller holes, but some of the small ones will fit in every hole. And they all get clustered around this crystal ball that is magnetic. And you're going to take turns taking a magic wand, which is also magnetic, but reverse polarity toward the crystal ball, and wave it at the ball, which will repel the ball, pushing the ball's platform around, and therefore pushing the garlic tokens, and either knocking them into the holes, which will end your turn, or guiding them off the edge of the board, which gets you points. And you continue like this until all of the tokens...
I'm having a hard time visualizing this, but all right.
So just imagine like a central platform, like a cone. Okay, there's a cone with a crystal ball on top of it. And surrounding it, you put all these plastic tokens. And all along that surface are holes that the garlic tokens can fall into. And so then you wave this magic wand at the crystal ball, which pushes the pyramid into the garlic. And at first, you're just going to drop them all over the place, where you sort of need to scatter them a little bit until you can get a clear path to push one of them off the edge of the board rather than into the holes. And that earns you points. But if you hit it into the holes, your turn is over and you pass it to the next player. The best way to play, however, is to do it in the dark, because those garlic tokens and the crystal ball and the magic wand are all glow in the dark. So if you charge them up well enough, turn off the lights, now you've got the glowing tokens and you're moving the thing around and trying to not knock them into the holes. This is a similar game to Nacht der Magier, which has been one of my grail games for a long time, which also had a platform. You're trying to push pieces off and score points without knocking over other pieces. Except this uses a magnet. It's a little bit less expensive, a little bit cheaper. It's plastic pieces as opposed to wood. But it does a lot of similar things. It's a good time. I played it with adults, and there was certainly, once you figure out how to use the system, it's much more about positioning when you're done, what you're leaving your opponents, than it is necessarily about tremendous skill. But it's the way the magnets react to each other. Sometimes the ball sort of lurches in certain directions as as inertia is overcome, that sort of thing. It's a fun physical dexterity activity, and a good time. A great little kids game. And that's not, if I recall, not that expensive. Vampires of the Night. I liked it.
All right. I'm not sold on it, though. But that's mostly because I'm still not visualizing it. Should have did this one on Dice Tower tonight.
Yeah, I guess. But then we have to do it in the dark, and I don't know how that would work.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Well, let's keep moving on.
Which we will do. Tom, you said you wanted to go get a snack. While you're doing that, I'm going to check the voicemail, which I see is blinking here. Hang on. Where's that button? Here it is.
Hey, Eric. I know that you all are talking about food, board games, or maybe it's board games that are related to food. Either way, I heard food and board games, so I had to ask this question. I'm always hungry, like always hungry. I eat little snacks throughout the day. I can't help it. Sometimes I'm playing board games and, well, I need to eat. And it's just one of those awkward moments where you're like, do I pull something out to eat? Is that appropriate? Maybe the person I'm playing at their house that's hosting, they don't want that. There are so many questions that run through my head when eating food. If it's someone that I'm comfortable with, it's a little bit different. We kind of have a general knowledge, but someone that I don't play with and I'm new to their home, maybe they don't like us eating at the table. So would you say it's generally considered appropriate to eat at a game table, whether or not the host is offering food or inviting others to eat? I know this can be a little touchy for some people, and some people don't really care. So curious to see what your thoughts are on that.
You know, that's a good question, Mandy. Okay, so there's like different tiers of responses that you can get here. Approaches. Obviously, the easiest thing, well, maybe not. The most direct thing is to ask, hey, does anybody mind if I have a snack at the table? Anybody mind if I have a drink near the table? Because that's really the big issue is how close is the food or drink getting to the game. And you can get a response, straightforward that way. But I think the reason you're asking is you don't want necessarily the direct approach. So the next thing to do is to watch what everybody else is doing. So if someone else is eating at the table or has brought a particular type of snack to the table or has pulled something out, then you know that's generally okay if you're new to that group. And then if no one else is eating at the table, but you really do need something and everyone is different and gets hungry at different times, I think it's perfectly fine for you to have something to eat at the table. But this is when you have to respect the cone of it's not the cone of silence, but the shield of danger around the game. If I'm going to eat something and it really hasn't been figured out. In fact, just in general, I like to stand up, take a step away from the table, and eat there. If I still want to be involved, lean over a little bit, but make sure that I am being cognizant and considerate of any possible contamination of my food and the game. And before I approach or touch any of the components, I make sure my hands are wiped down very clean and I'm ready to interact with the game once again. And I think that shows respect for the game and for the people around it. And even if people, may also be hungry and you're not necessarily sharing with them or whatever, I think that's far less of an issue than you showing respect for the game. So ask first, but if you don't want to do that, watch what other people are doing. And if you have no answer or no feedback on that front, just be as respectful as possible when you're eating in front of the game table. All right.
Tom.
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 Hi, Tom.
Have you ever accidentally eaten one of your game pieces? Do you ever make a fort out of game boxes?
How big can a miniature be before it's not really a miniature? And now, the Dice Tower will authoritatively, definitely, possibly, maybe, answer your questions.
Tom, which way to the game library?
All right, what's our first question here? Wait, this question's from you?
No, this is Eric from Massachusetts who wanted to comment from 2 episodes back when Suzanne asked about retheming Euro games as monster games. He said he really enjoyed the segment and came up with an idea that is clearly made to be a kaiju monsterama. Carcassonne. Think about it, he says. Your meeples are ginormous monsters, ravaging cities and reducing them to rubble. They are lurching along the roads, devouring all travelers. They are setting up shop in out-of-the-way temples where the locals accept and worship them as gods. And they are laying claim to the countryside, daring all comers to challenge their dominance. Heck, with a couple of simple modifications, random people printed on certain tiles representing victims and or worshippers, you could really play up the monster angle. In fact, excuse me, but I think I need to contact Z-Man and Mr. Verida about a business opportunity. Cheers, he says.
Well, interestingly enough, did you know that they're coming out with a monster game on Kickstarter?
You can't think of it right now?
And I can't find it anywhere. But it's a game that's essentially, from what I can tell, with miniatures and such, it is the Pacific Rim, the board game. But it's not called Pacific Rim, the board game. It's called something else.
Okay.
Maybe I'll know by next time.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Peter says, have you ever met someone at a convention who thought you spoke too slowly and unbearably so? I've been listening to your podcast for years, and I always do on double speed. One reason I don't watch many of the Dice Tower videos is because I can't speed them up, which you actually can, Peter. You can definitely speed up YouTube videos, just like you can do podcasts. Anyhow, Peter says, I imagine that if I were to meet you at a convention, I wouldn't recognize your voice, as it just wouldn't be as frenetic as I'm used to hearing it. This is sad, because I've been listening long enough that though I've never met you, I feel like you are friends. Boy, I wasn't... Okay. Sorry. I had some comments. I was not saying. Ask, just wondering if this has happened to you before, says Peter.
Well, often when I meet people in real life, I try to slow down just a bit.
I also hate
to mess with them. No, I mean, it always weirds me out that I know people listen at double speed, 1.5 speed, whatever. It's just weird. I know that there's efficiency and there's, you only have so much time to listen to these things. But especially when I hear people do it in audiobooks, because I spend all that time crafting my pace and trying to make sure I lay out a world for the listeners and to know that people are flying through it faster than I'm reading. It's just weird. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't think you would want to hear people talk that fast. It's one thing when you're listening to it on the radio, right, or podcast or whatever. But to have someone talk to you like that in person, I already have a hard time dealing with the fact that Eric sounds like his voice does in person.
I sound just like myself.
No, but you really do, and that really threw me off when I first met you. I was like, "What? This guy's a freak." No, I didn't think that, but I was like, "Whoa, his voice sounds the same as it does on the radio," and it does, right? So that was weird. But if we spoke really fast and talked like this the whole time when you were talking to somebody, that's one thing when you're listening to them I can't imagine you would enjoy that talking to that person.
Yeah, that would be weird.
I don't know. Even like Rado talks really fast on his show, Richard Ham. But in person, he talks pretty fast, but I think he's not as fast as he is on the videos. Because he has to stop for breath, and then I can say something.
Right. Yeah, you can slow him down.
So I don't know that this has ever happened to us, where people have mentioned it to us before, for sure, but no one ever seemed put off by it.
So Christopher wants to complain about the price of board games. For example, the Rising Sun Kickstarter raised $4,228,060 US. The standard game sells for 995 SEK, which is the Swedish kroner, or $125 US. And Christopher wants to know if board games should be such a luxury item. Why no one discusses miniature quality that with today's technology and digitalization that they can easily be made high, and no discussion about why we should pay $121 US for a game that takes 2 hours to play. For example, Mansions of Madness, the first and second edition, differ in price by about $38. The only new thing is the app. This shows that a game like Mansions of Madness First Edition or Rising Sun really should cost about $63 US, the original price for Mansions of Madness First Edition. I know it's a hard topic and that many game companies are small, but is it good for the hobby or for consumers that a good standard 2-hour game costs over $100 US?
I put this on because I do want to talk about this. First of all, and this is something Z says all the time, so I'm kind of cribbing it from him, in that we can't tell you if something is too expensive for you. We don't know how much money is valued to you. I can say, oh, this meal was, cost me $30 to eat at this restaurant. That was really expensive. And some people, they wouldn't even blink about something like that. And for other people, that's a huge amount of money. So first of all, I don't know how much something is to you. Secondly, should board games be such a luxury item? They're not. You don't have to buy Rising Sun. You can buy a bunch of other cheaper board games. There are literally thousands of games that are published every year that are fairly inexpensive, many of them. And even if they're not, guess what? Next year, some of them are going to be really cheap. Because they're going to be discounted because people are not going to be able to sell. So board games are a luxury item, period. You don't need them. All right? If you do want them, you can afford something probably. And I'm not going to worry about how much something costs. That being said, paying $120 for a 2-hour game would be pretty expensive if you played it one time.
Right.
But since I fully expect you will play it, let's say, 10 times, that's $20, and $120 divided by 20 hours comes out to $6 an hour. Divided by, let's say you have 4 people, that's $1.25 an hour, and that is downright inexpensive entertainment.
Right, if you play it 10 times. I think the issue is many games only get played once or twice before
fine,
they
but
go
then
on
I
a
don't feel
trade
bad
pile.
for those people who are complaining about the price for those. You know what I mean? Don't complain about the price for buying a game if you're only going to play it once. That's on you, not me. Or on the game company. They made the game so you could play it many, many times. And I know that I play a lot of games less than most people, I suppose. I don't play games over and over and over again, but then I can't complain about how expensive that game is. Even games that are extremely expensive. Let's say this, I got the Small World Deluxe Edition for $400 when it came out or whatever. But if I played that 50 times in my life, that's pretty good. How much money do people spend on a television?
Game. Yeah.
Or on your iPhone or whatever.
True.
Games are getting more expensive. I get that. So is everything.
Right. I mean, oil prices for the plastics certainly made a lot of prices go up in the last 10 years or so.
So overall, yeah, it's pricey, but I can't tell you that it's, what's the solution? There's a couple solutions. One, you can work hard and make more money maybe and get an extra job. I don't mean to sound snarky. What I mean is if that's really a big deal and you really want it, you work and get it. Or you decide that it's not worth that money, which is a very fair and reasonable thing to decide, and get something else instead. I don't think you can expect any other outcome. I don't think we can expect CMON to start dropping the price in this game, which I already think is pretty cheap for what you get, honestly. So I don't see any reason to complain about these, again, because there are so many inexpensive games out there. You know,
right. I mean, if you are tired of paying premium prices for these miniature-heavy, plastic-heavy games, then start, looking at the ones with less expensive components, the ones that have the $40 price point, $50 price point, and put your money there instead.
All right, York says, we give a lot of recommendations for games for parties and people who aren't really into gaming, but in our line of work, do we ever still run into people who aren't interested in games at all?
Sure. Well, I mean, I just talked about 2 episodes ago. We talked about my church game day, and while they were interested in playing games, they were certainly not experts in the hobby and didn't have a whole lot of experience playing things. So stuff like Can't Stop and Transamerica was a perfect fit for them. Also, you're constantly, there's always opportunities at family gatherings where that aunt and uncle that don't really play games hears that you are a game player and are willing to try something of yours. Give us your best shot. Show us your best game. And that's an opportunity to reach some new people. So those opportunities are out there, even though most of our gaming time is spent at conventions and game groups and stuff where, people know what's going on.
Sometimes it seems like when we're at these conventions, people aren't interested in gaming because a lot of these publishers we hang out with, sometimes they don't game that much. But, yeah, of course we run into people who aren't interested in gaming. I do all the time.
Yeah. Henry has a friend who has a very obnoxious house rule that he lives by. No matter what game they play. Let's say you're playing Monopoly, as an example, and Tom lands on Sam's space, but Sam doesn't notice. If the next player goes before Sam notices, then Tom gets off without paying. That's a standard Monopoly rule. But if Z tells Sam that Tom owes Sam money, then Z now owes Sam money instead of Tom for ratting Tom out. It has resulted in a few disagreements when he refuses to pay something he owes because someone else pointed it out. How do you feel about this house rule and his emphasis to play by it all the time?
I don't think I like this friend.
That's it. That's crazy.
But I've definitely had this happen before, mostly when I was a kid, but I've run into people who play Monopoly this way. They're like, if I roll the dice and the next person picks up the dice and you haven't noticed, then I don't have to pay you.
That is, I believe, the official rule. If you're playing like tournament Monopoly rules, if you aren't paying attention and you don't notice that somebody lands on your property, I think you have to call it twice. I landed on Boardwalk. Boardwalk?
Okay, but in a tournament, I doubt anything's going to happen, right, in that regard. In real life, you're playing, you got up to want to go to the bathroom, you're drinking, you're talking, and when I played with people who play with this rule, they are deliberately conversing with people and trying to talk to them and keep them distracted. They hand the dice to the next person. That person rolls, you're like, ha, 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 ha. And then you punch them in the nose. Of course, I wouldn't punch someone in the nose. Nor have I as an adult. But,
of course not.
Now, boo. If you're trying to cheat in a game, why are we playing a game? Unless the game specifically encourages cheating, which is fine. Right.
How do you feel about the new Monopoly Cheaters Edition?
I don't know. I went to the store to look for it, and it wasn't there.
But I think especially trying to make this a global house rule for other games, that's just crazy. Like, you're supposed to enforce the rules of the game. And if you miss something and I'm paying attention, the other person isn't, I shouldn't be punished for making you guys follow the rules of the game. That doesn't make sense.
All right, last question is from Josh. Josh says, hey, Tom and Eric, when I listen to you talk about games, we hardly ever select the classic games like Hearts and Cribbage, etc. Why? Is it because these games fall short for us, or are there better games, or they defy definition, not fitting well into lists? Or do we have favorite classic games that we still play? Or have they been eclipsed by the cult of the 21st century? And then he said he found Eric did list Euchre and Hearts in his top 10 tricking games. So kudos to you, Eric. Don't give him kudos. Josh.
I will collect them and use them later.
No, that just means Eric hasn't played enough good trick-taking games.
Oh. Okay.
I jest slightly, but the fact is these games are classic, sure. But that's because these other games haven't been around or have wide enough appeal to be classic. They're classic because they're falling under that constriction of having to play with that 52-card deck with 4 suits. And you're like, okay, what games? And there's games that work with it that are fine. But I believe published games are not bound by these artificial constrictions, and therefore you can have some really cool trick-taking in games. And they may not be classics, but I think in every way they're better. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to playing Hearts or Spades or maybe poker, I guess. I don't know. Depends on the mood. Or solitaire or whatever. These games pale to me besides published games. And that's why the quote-unquote classic games don't often make my list.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. These classics are often used as jumping-off points in design. Most trick-taking games have some connection to Hearts, euchre, poker, something that is built off that 52-card deck, but now some extra element has been added onto it, and that makes things more interesting, I think. Yeah, these are classics for a reason. They've endured, but the published stuff tends to go a step further, which is pretty cool, too.
Well, that's it for questions. Let's go to scary stuff.
And now, another tale of board gaming horror. Gather round, children. 8 years ago, I was at a game convention in Paris. Here, new designers could demo their unpublished games. At the far corner of a tent, away from the crowd, a weird-looking guy was sitting in front of a board, waiting for a player. A little voice in my head was telling me to leave at once, but against my better judgment, I decided to give his prototype a go. 2 years prior, I had had the privilege to play one of the first copies of Dixit, and to this day it is still one of my best memories as a gamer. So still riding on my Dixit high, I told myself that maybe this could be the next big hit game, and that I was lucky to play it for the first time. Couldn't it be? But from the start I knew it was going to be an ordeal. For whatever reason, the guy seemed unhappy and reluctant to teach me the rules. And as he explained them, I shivered. The game was chess with superpowers. The king could move in all directions, as in regular chess, but he could also shoot lasers. The pawns could drop bombs, and so on. You get the idea. I'm pretty average at normal chess, so as he was explaining the rules, I already knew I had absolutely no chance of winning his enhanced version. Being a polite gentleman, I started playing anyway, and as expected, I kept losing piece after piece after piece, and he was relentless in pummeling me. After a few turns, I secretly decided to throw the game to end my misery, so I deliberately sacrificed my queen. I was expecting him to say something like, "Be careful, you shouldn't put your queen here, or I'll capture it with my knight." But instead, he instantly captured my queen and yelled, "You're a second-rate player! You should never play strategy games again!" I didn't reply and literally ran away, happy that he hadn't tried to hit me.
Eric, did you write this story? Is this like cathartic for you?
It's cathartic, but I didn't write it, no.
You're a second-rate player.
Some people just don't quite get the idea that you're supposed to draw people into your game, not just smack them down.
I tell you, I will never understand why people are protective of the hobby and don't want to encourage more people to play it. Just recently, we were out to eat, and it was my son's birthday, I think. He just turned 4. And I was like, oh, yeah, there's that train store around here that has model trains and model things, and he loves cars. So I thought I'd take him in to look at it. And I knew I shouldn't go in this store, but the store is just so hateful. You walk in, and the sign's like, you break it, you bought it. It's like staring at you as soon as you come in. And there's like signs on the walls that say, if you break something, you have to pay for it, and it's expensive. So there's like models all over the store. All the people in the store, none of them talk to me. There are chains that keep you from going to parts of the store because the models there, I guess, are so expensive. You just have to like look at them from a distance.
Right.
And I like trains. I like models. I like rockets. I like that sort of stuff. But that store did not. I mean, they like. I don't know how they get new people into that hobby going into that store. Yeah. Because I want to go in and share my joy with this with my son. And it's people like that who can chase folks away from hobbies. Now, that's a rarity. I don't go into most stores like that. Although I would say that's probably why Radio Shack's out of business. But
yeah, I mean, it's almost like that was partially a clubhouse as well. I mean, we visited in Connecticut. The Portal has a train division. We got to sort of tour around, but
they were super far nice more welcoming. That place.
They were super nice to us, but they had a section of the store that was closed off, and you can only be let in at certain times. And it was the hobbyist active section. It wasn't a place that they wanted people to just be able to wander around because, these are very fragile models, and they need care and supervision to be used. But I think their approach seemed a lot better than what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, that store had people who'd be like, can I help you? What are you looking for? Oh, you're interested in trains? Well, let me tell you about the different scales of trains. No, this one, the guy behind the counter didn't even look at me. Another person walking around the shop would peek at me once in a while, like, is that guy going to steal models? And I was like, oh, man.
Yeah.
And so this guy that you're talking about reminds me of that. He's trying to teach a game, but you're too dumb to buy my game. Really? Right. You're right, I am.
Thanks for letting me beat you. It's okay. Bye.
It's a Dice Tower Top 10.
The Dice Tower's Top 10 list is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com.
I do not know why we've never done this top 10 list before.
How is that possible, Tom?
I don't know, because the fact is I like food. And this got me all fired up.
Fired up because you cook food. Ha!
Besides the bad puns, which I've been listening to all day today because I've been recording with Jason. But no, it's just food is a universal thing, right? No matter what country you go to, food is a big deal. People's lives revolve around it. People like to talk about it. People wax poetic over it. I mean, I'm not doing a podcast about food, but I talk about food on this show all the time.
Yes.
And when I run into people, we're always talking about food.
Mm-hmm.
So why is there not more food-themed games? Food is a great theme.
Sure.
And I found plenty of food-themed games, but not nearly as many as, there are more games about building European villages than there are about food.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot that have food in them.
Food's great. There should be more games about it.
There's a lot of games, a lot of those types of games that have food in them, but it's much more of a resource than a focus.
Now, for my list, I did not include games that were about liquid only. So
I think I did that as well.
No games about coffee, no games about wine.
Yeah.
Those are the two main ones.
Yep.
There's no game about soda, for crying out loud. Why not?
There's soda in one of mine.
Yeah, in it, but there's no game. I'm getting mad again.
Okay.
Let's just start.
I'm sorry. Let's go.
Number 10.
Let's start with some mushrooms. My number 10 is Morels. It's a 2-player card game in which you are wandering through the forest, trekking down a path of cards, and collecting mushrooms. It's sort of a set collection game, but there's also an eating mechanism where you can actually eat the mushrooms for points. There's little frying pans. It's a neat little 2-player. Morels, my number 10.
Yeah, I'm not as big a fan of this as other people are, but still, I do love mushrooms. Mushrooms cooked in butter. My number 10 is coming up later on Eric's list. He apparently is hotter for this game than I am.
I think we'll be able to combine to
to discuss it pretty well.
Number 9.
Number 9 for me, I mentioned a couple episodes back. That's Too Many Cooks, a game where it's a card game where you're making a stew, like a pot of some sort of soup, and adding ingredient cards into the center and trying to reach a certain value or keep under a certain value. But there's also spicy cards that can sort of spoil the broth, and so you have to really watch the levels of various ingredients while still trying to collect them for your points. Fun game. As Tom mentioned, though, it's harder to track down these days. Maybe it'll come back. Too Many Cooks, number 9.
Too Many Cooks. Too Many Cooks.
That's the Kit Kat bar theme song.
My number 9 is higher on Eric's list. Oh, we better get there quickly.
Number 8.
Number 8, I know, is not on Tom's list, and that's Burger Joint.
I considered it, though.
Okay, all right. It's a 2-player game, resource game in which you're running either a pizza joint or a burger joint and trying to upgrade your small little stands into much more involved restaurants, gaining special powers. It's a cube pusher, almost literally, but I like the mechanism, the engine building of Burger Joint. My number 8.
My number 8 is about the most amazing food there is, ice cream. Well, except for pie. And by the way, I haven't played Pie Town yet, which is why it's not on my list. But Pie Town is probably a great game about pie. But Rocky Road a la mode. This is a game where you're running an ice cream truck, selling ice cream to the neighbors who want specific ice creams. And so you're driving your little truck around, collecting orders. It's a little pick up and deliver is not quite right. Set collection style game.
Yeah.
I really, really like this one a lot. It's a small little card game. Has bright colored ice cream. I want an ice cream popsicle right now. I'm not going to do it because of many reasons. Rocky Road a la mode. I don't even think Rocky Road is in this game.
This was a shortlist game for me. I enjoyed this. Had the chance to play this at a couple conventions ago, and it's a neat little game. I like the positional aspect of seizing the opportunities of your ice cream truck and filling those orders. Good times.
Number 7.
Number 7 is the McDonald's game, which I had the pleasure of playing with the Flip the Table crew. It's an old game, but it's about fulfilling orders at McDonald's, and you've got your little tray with all of the items that you'd need to fulfill an order, and somebody reads a whole list of what they're ordering at McDonald's. But they'll often change things at the last minute, so you can't touch anything until they're done reading. And so you're trying to remember they want 2 hamburgers and an order of fries, and then they come back and say, oh, on second thought, no fries, just get me another hamburger. Please. And as soon as they say please, you have to grab all the ingredients as fast as you can. And once you've got it right, you think you're correct, you throw your marble into a little bin, and if you're right, if you're the first one and you've got it correct, you get the points. It is a silly, ridiculous game, but a neat, novel mechanism about food. The McDonald's game, number 7.
You're saying it's knocked Rocky Road on a mode off? Seems kind of fishy.
I enjoed this one tremendously. It's cheesy for sure.
Oh my goodness, stop with the puns.
Woohoo!
My number 7 is Sushi Go, or specifically, I guess, Sushi Go Party. Because Sushi Go is a game about sushi, and I think there's more games about sushi than there is any other food. Maybe burgers.
Yeah,
or
no,
pizza.
there's burgers.
Pizza, burgers, and sushi.
Mm-hmm.
That's a new game I just invented. Anyhow, Sushi Go is a very simple drafting game where you're trying to collect sets of different kinds of sushi. It's an amazingly good drafting game. Sushi Go Party is great not only for just the drafting, but because of how inexpensive this game is. Back to the other question, it's one of the cheapest games I know for how much play you get out of it. So Sushi Go.
Cool.
Number 6.
Speaking of sushi, number 6 for me is Wasabi. This is an older Z-Man games. I think this showed up on one of our top 10 lists when we did the 15 or 10-year-old games. You're trying to get collections of ingredients to be lined up on a grid, and if you do so and fulfill the recipes, you'll earn points. But of course, your opponents are playing on the same grid and trying to put ingredients where they want them, which is never where you want them. Anyway, Wasabi, number 6.
Wasabi is like picture Scrabble.
Okay, yeah.
Number 6 for me is Menu Master. I like Menu Master because it's a party game that probably could have used a somewhat better production, but essentially in this game you are putting together different items and you're trying to please the person. You have all sorts of different ingredients, and you're putting together a dish for the players to taste and select. That's a great idea. I really like this concept. Maybe you're trying to make the most disgusting dish or the delicious dish or whatever. It's really fun to do, right? So Menu Master.
Number 5.
My number 5 was Tom's number 10. That is Scoville, a game about growing and breeding hot peppers. And what I really like about this is that you have this sort of hierarchy of the more interesting, hotter peppers that you sort of work your way up toward. You put your meeple in between two varieties of peppers, and then you can combine them into a better pepper, which can then be planted and then combined with something else and work your way up. It's a neat system. I like all the colors of peppers, and it's more of a farming game than an eating game, but it's definitely about food. Scoville, number 5.
He's right. It's definitely more about farming, but I could not help myself because it's all about hot peppers, and I do love them so. My number 5 is Burger Up. In this game, you are literally building hamburgers. I like that. Or sometimes veggie burgers, I guess. But just all kinds of sandwiches. I guess you're making chicken sandwiches sometimes, too. The fact is, it's delicious looking. I love it. I love the look of it. The play is simple. Build specific burgers for people who want them. Burger Up. A lot of fun. I did consider Burger Joint, but Burger Up, I think, is a better game.
Number 4.
My number 4 is Agricola, which is one of the games I almost discounted because it has a feed your... Was that a cow? It has a feed your people mechanism, and I was like, there's lots of games that have feed your people, but Agricola is also about growing the food. You have to clear space for your fields, you have to plant wheat, and you have to plant vegetables and grow them and harvest them. There's much more of a process of making food to use, to do things with, to earn points and feed your people, baking bread, all sorts of actual mechanisms of food production. And it's a great game as well. My number 4, Agricola.
I will comment on this one later. All right,
Okay.
my number 4 is Ristorante Italiano. This is a game about putting together meals and selling them and having the best restaurant you possibly can. It's probably the most thematic game on this list in a whole, if you want this is how to run a restaurant. This is the kind of game that pushes towards that end. I like it a lot. And again, mind-boggled that there isn't more games in this category. Although there is one, I think, that comes close to this, and I'll let Eric talk about it.
Number 3.
Okay, is that now or is that later? We'll see. Walkstar is my number 3.
Yes, that's the one.
Okay, it's a real-time game from Tim Fowers about running a Chinese restaurant. You've got timers, so you have only about a minute or so to get through as many customers as possible. You have to keep your inventory of ingredients well maintained. You're spending dice to collect more stuff and make recipes and buy recipes and just sort of keep making money so that you can pay off your loan at the end of 4 turns. It is frenetic. It's crazy. A little fiddly, but I really enjoy it. Walkstar, my number 3.
Yeah, this is on my short list. I like Walkstar. My number 3 is Piece of Cake or New York Slice. Now, that may seem weird since one's about cake and one's about pizza, but they are literally the same game with minor changes to New York Slice. Piece of Cake was about splitting a cake. One person splits it. It's I split, you choose. And New York Slice is the same thing, but with pizza. Both games make me hungry playing them because they show delicious cake or pie or delicious pizza. They're also really easy to play. And I'm actually surprised Eric didn't put this on his list.
I have yet to play either of these. I've never crossed paths with it, and I'm sure I would enjoy it, but I like the packaging of New York Slice, that it comes in a pizza box. That's pretty cool.
Number 2.
Number 2 is another real-time restaurant management game, and I think it just edges out Walkstar, and it was also on Tom's list in the number 9 position. That's Kitchen Rush. This one also uses timers, but it uses many more of them. It does many of the same things as Walkstar. You have to buy ingredients, you have to store them, you have to fulfill recipes and orders, but it does it in I think, a more realistic way. It's less abstracted than it is in Walkstar, and so it really feels like you're having to shop for vegetables, and you have to maintain, you have to wash dishes in this one. You have to seek customers and have the maitre d' put them somewhere and then deliver the food, and it feels a little bit more real, as much as that can be done in a board game. Real in running a restaurant, that chaos. Kitchen Rush, my number 2.
Yeah. This one, Melody was just talking about this to me today, about just how this game, the theme of it feels so strong. You know, it could be anything about moving stuff and putting it in other spots, but it really gives you that idea of quickly, frantically trying to fulfill orders.
Yeah.
Although, honestly, you should have that much food in your freezer. But you should be rushing out to the store.
Right.
My number 2 is Feast of Odin. Eric mentioned Agricola and the feeding your people, and even though that's a mechanism that could die a horrible death, in my opinion, Feast of Odin does it right, because you're feeding your people in Odin, and that's the whole point of the game. It's called the Feast of Odin. And you're sticking food up in this spot, but the length of the food, like if it's a long plate of food, it will cover more spots, or you can stick a whole cow up there. It takes up a big chunk of spots. I like that concept. This game is all about getting the food you need, but it's also about a lot of other things. So it's my token in this area, but it's the proper one. It was the right choice.
Okay.
Just to clarify,
when I think
Eric chose poorly.
When I think of Feast for Odin, I actually don't think much about the feast part, and I'm thinking more about the crowns and the polyominoes and trying to fit them on the board and coins, and I just wasn't thinking about the feast.
That's probably why you lost.
The food, that may be it. I was like, I gotta fit this crown in here, and Odin can't eat this crown.
And finally, number 1.
All right, last for me is another restaurant logistics game. It's Food Chain Magnet, which is a terrific game, but it's a lot more about the marketing and production aspect, the organizational aspect of food. But yeah, you have to market those burgers. You have to market the pizza. You have to figure out where you're going to get your supply of Coca-Cola or beer or lemonade and get it to where it needs to go. So it's a food industry game, and a lovely, crunchy one as well. My number 1 food game, Food Chain Magnate.
Yeah, this game isn't on my list just because I have still yet to play it.
You should.
I hear you. My number 1 is it's not really a tie between 2 games because they're the same game just with different names. From Uwe Rosenberg, he got my top 2 spots here. And that is Mamma Mia or Solo Mia, which was the sequel. Same game. Mamma Mia is a pizza building game where there's a lot of pizza games. It just makes for good theming. Where you are putting ingredients on a pile face down, and you just keep adding, or face up, I guess. You just keep adding them to this pile, and every once in a while throw a pizza recipe on there. And when everyone's done, you flip the pile over and start revealing all the ingredients from it. And if a pizza comes along all the ingredients are there for that pizza, you score points. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a memory game, but it's really fun, actually, and I really like it. And it makes me want to eat pizza every time I play it. See, that's how I did this. How much does the game make me want to eat food?
Yeah. I mean, I like Mamma Mia. I'm just surprised it's your number 1, that's all. It's very high up there.
Mamma Mia is a highly underrated game. It's really good.
Yeah, okay. I mean, you know what? I think I still have a copy of Mamma Mia. I don't know if I let that one go or not.
Well, I really do like it. Alrighty, well, that's our top 10 food games. Let's see what the voters said. You said, by the way, you can do this every time. Go to our website right now and vote on the next one. But I digress. Number 10, Veggie Garden.
I thought about that one.
Would not have picked that one because they would not have considered veggies food.
Yeah.
Number 9, Scoville. So that was both of us. 8, Fabled Fruit.
I considered Fabled Fruit, but I don't feel like I'm dealing with food with Fabled Fruit. It's
you're dealing with potions or something.
Yeah, well, you're making smoothies, and it just it's just a resource management game or collection of colored cards. It doesn't feel like food. That was my reluctance.
Well, actually, I considered it, but not Fabled Fruit. I considered Finca because of the fruit for the same reason.
That I think Finca's a closer match.
Number 7 is Cacao for chocolate. Number 6, Bonanza.
Considered as well, but it's
Eric couldn't imagine eating those cute little beans.
Right? Yeah, I don't feel like I'm growing them for food. I'm selling them for money. I'm not eating that stuff.
Number 5 is Viticulture, which is mostly about wine.
It is, and I felt like that would be my number 1 if I did include it on the list.
It's a great game.
There's
no question.
Yeah.
4, Morels. 3, Kitchen Rush. I was surprised this one's so high since it's fairly new.
It is.
2, New York Slice, and number 1, Sushi Go. And that was after it was number 1 and number 3 were Sushi Go and Sushi Go Party.
Oh, nice.
But I combined them to
There you
make
go.
number 1. Man, I'm still getting mad about this. I'm not really mad, but I'm kind of irritated there's not more games about food.
Okay. Well,
I want there to be a Kickstarter game where there's miniatures of food. And the stretch goals are like a plastic pizza. And everyone who orders this game gets a free, I was about to say like some national chain, but like a pizzeria coupon of your choice.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would be fun.
With a stromboli.
Stromboli stretch goal. Add on Stromboli. Add on garlic nuts.
If someone has a Stromboli stretch goal, I'm backing it no matter what it is. I just did a Kickstarter for beef sticks. It was delicious. This lady made all sorts of flavored beef sticks, and so I Kickstarted it. Because that's how I roll. That's the kind of person who needs our support.
Okay.
Am I getting off subject?
Maybe a little. I'm pretty hungry now, too. I think I need to go get a snack.
It is 10 o'clock, sir. No.
Maybe a little snack.
After 10? I don't remember what the rule is, but
you're
it's
not
like something.
Supposed to.
After a certain number, it goes straight to your hips or something. I forget what the terminology
okay.
is.
Oh, maybe a handful of almonds or something.
There you go. That's a good game. A handful of almonds.
Ooh.
They should just call it that.
What would that be about?
We're really getting off track here.
Like,
All
they
right.
would be like a fistful of dragon stones or handful of
No more
almonds.
food talk. I mean it.
Anybody want a peanut?
All right. Well, folks, thanks for coming along and joining us on this. Thanks for sending in questions and such. You can send in more questions to questions@dicetower.com.
Oh, is that a new email address, too?
We got lots of them, baby.
Oh, wow.
I'm pretty sure those just come to me. But so anyhow, I think that's it. So until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Eric Summerer.
And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode number 544 was recorded on February 22nd, 2018. Coming up next week, Mandy and Suze take a look at the pros and cons of lending games to friends. And in 2 weeks, Tom and I will be back with our top 10 cute games. This podcast is sponsored by listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund is dedicated to providing support to members of the board gaming community in their hour of need. If a catastrophic event has become more than you can handle, find out how we can help at jackvassell.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom, Mandy, Suzanne, and Eric, with assistance from Itai Perez, Derek Porter, and Rob Searing. Adirondack Chair is provided by Hardback. Timothy Pinkham composed our theme, and hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games at great prices at CoolStuffInc.com. Let us know what you think of the show by posting to the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, following the Dice Tower on Twitter, or by emailing us at dicetower@gmail.com. And don't forget to visit the other shows in the Dice Tower Network, including Board Games with Panda, The Broken Meeple, Start Space, The Game Pit, The Secret Cabal Gaming Podcast, Tabletop Game Talk, and Flip Flory's Super Saturday Board Game Serial. Find out more at DicetowerNetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. All right, so what is an underrepresented food? I mean, we want you want more games about food, but what food item is not represented at all?
All right, great. I'm glad you asked this question.
Okay.
Number 1 is pie, because even though there's Pie Town, there's still not enough good games about pie. Specifically, meat pies. There's almost no games about those. Number 2 is just basically cookies or an ice cream. Number 3 is more pie. Number 4 is cake. 5, let's go back to pie again. 6, tiramisu. 7, there's not enough. I can't even continue. Milkshakes, 8.
Yeah.
I'm just hungry, Eric. That's all there is.
Yeah.
I gotta get off this diet.
These are all desserts.